Pranam, I am Priyanshi Rayal, a student of Vikramshila Coaching Institute, Chaudabiga, Rishikesh. Today I am going to tell you the parliamentary system and federal system of the Indian Constitution. The Constitution of India establishes a parliamentary form of government at the center and in the state level. Article 74 and 75 deals with parliamentary system in the central level and Article 163 and 164 at the state level. Modern democratic countries have parliamentary and presidential form of government on the basis of the relation between the executive and legislative organs of the government. The parliamentary form of government is one in which the executive is responsible to the legislature for its policies and acts. The presidential form of government is one in which the executive is not responsible to the legislature for its policies and acts, and it's constitutionally independent of the legislature in respect of its term of office. The parliamentary form of government is also known as cabinet government, responsible government, and Westminster model of government, and is prevalent in Britain, India, Canada, Japan, etc. The presidential form of government is also known as non-responsible government, non-parliamentary government, and fixed executive system of government, and is prevalent in US, Russia, Sri Lanka, etc. Ivor Jennings called parliamentary system as cabinet government because the cabinet is the nucleus of power in the parliament. It is also known as responsible government because the cabinet, which is the real executive, is accountable to the parliament and stays office as long as it enjoys the leader's confidence. It is also known as Westminster model of government after the location of British Parliament where the parliamentary system is originated. In the past years, many British constitutional and political experts called Prime Minister primus inter pares, which means first among equals. In the recent years, the Prime Minister's position, influence and power have been increased significantly vis-a-vis the cabinet. He has come to play a dominant role in the British politico-administrative system. Hence, many political analysts like Crossbird and Mackintosh called British system as prime ministerial system. The same context hold good in the same description hold good in the Indian context too. Some features of parliamentary form of government are: first, nominal and real executive. The president is nominal executive or de jure or titular executive, while the prime minister is de facto executive. While the prime minister is real executive and de facto executive. The president is head of the state, while the prime minister is head of the government. Article 74 provides a council of ministers headed by prime minister to aid and advise the president to exercise his powers. The advice so tendered is binding on the president. Second, majority party rule. The political party which secures maximum vote in the Lok Sabha election form the government. The leader of that party is appointed as prime minister by the president. Other ministers are appointed by president on the recommendation of the prime minister. In case no political party gets majority in the Lok Sabha election, a coalition of government is invited by the president to form the government. Third, collective responsibility. It is the bedrock principle of the parliamentary form of government. The ministers are responsible to the parliament in general and to the Lok Sabha in particular. They act like a team which swim and sing together. The principle of collective responsibility implies that the Lok Sabha can remove the ministry from its office by a vote of no confidence. Fourth, political homogeneity. Usually the council of ministers are from same political party and hence they have common ideology. But in case of coalition, the ministers are bounded by consciousness. Fifth, double membership. The ministers are member of both the executive and the legislature. This means a person who is not a member of parliament cannot be a minister. The Constitution of India stipulates that if a person is not a member of parliament, the Constitution of India stipulates that a person who is not a member of parliament for a consecutive period of 6 months ceases to be a minister. Fifth, leadership of the president. The president plays a leadership role in this form of government. He is the leader of council of ministers, the parliament and the ruling party which is in power. He plays a very important and crucial role in the functioning of the government. Seventh, dissolution of the lower house. The lower house of the parliament can be dissolved by the president on the recommendation of the prime minister. This means that the prime minister can advise the president to dissolve the lower house of the parliament before its expiry term and hold fresh election. Thus, the executive gets itself the right to dissolve the legislature in this form of government. 8. Secrecy. The ministers operate on the principle of secrecy of proceedings and cannot divulge information about their proceedings, decisions, and discussion. The ministers take oath of secrecy before entering their office. The oath of secrecy to the ministers is administered by the president. Features of unitary form of government. Sorry, features of presidential form of government. Unlike in Indian Constitution, the American Constitution provides a presidential form of government. And some of its features are: first, the president is both the head of the state and the head of the government. As the head of the state, he occupies ceremonial position, and as the head of the government, he leads the executive organ of the government. Second, the president is elected by a electoral college for a fixed period of 4 years and cannot be removed by the Congress except for a grave unconstitutional act. Third, he is governed with the help of a cabinet or a smaller body known as kitchen cabinet. It is an advisory body and consists of non-departmental and consisting non-departmental secretaries. These secretaries are accountable to him, appointed by him, and can be removed only by him. Fourth, the president and its secretaries are not responsible to the Congress and for their acts. They neither possess membership in the parliament nor attend their session. Fifth, the president cannot dissolve the lower house of the Congress, that is the House of Representatives. Sixth, the doctrine of separation of power is the basis of American presidential form of government. The executive, legislative, and judicial powers of the government are separated and vested in independent organs of the and are independent organs of the government. Some merits of parliamentary form of government. First, harmonious balance between the executive and legislative organs of the government. The greatest advantage of having parliamentary form of government is the harmonious balance and cooperation between the executive and legislative organ of the government. The executive is a part of the legislature and both are independent at their work. Hence, there is a less scope of disputes and conflict between the two organs of the government. Second, responsible government. By its very nature, the parliamentary form of government establishes a responsible government. The ministers are responsible to the parliament for their acts of omission and commission. The parliament exercises control over the ministers through various devices like adjournment motion, question hour, no confidence motion, discussion, etc. Prevents despotism. In parliamentary form of government, the executive authority is vested to a group of individuals and not to a single person. This dispersal of authority checks the dictatorial tendencies of the executive. Moreover, the executive is responsible to the parliament and can be removed by a no confidence motion. Fourth, a ready alternative government. In case the ruling party loses its majority, the head of the state, that is the president, can invite the opposition party to form the government. In other words, an alternative government can be formed without holding fresh elections. Dr. Jennings also said the leader of the opposition party is the alternative prime minister. Fifth, wide representation. In parliamentary form of government, the executive authority is vested to a group of individuals. Thus, it is possible to provide representation to all sections and regions in the government. The prime minister, while selecting his ministers, can take this factor into consideration. Some demerits of parliamentary form of government are: first, unstable government. The parliamentary form of government establishes an unstable form of government. There is no guarantee that the government can survive its tenure. This is due to the ministers are dependent on the mercy of the majority legislatures for their continuity and survival of the office. Multi-party no confidence motion, coalition government, and evils of multi-party defection can make their government unstable. The government headed by Morarji Desai, Charan Singh, VP Singh, Chandrasekhar are some such examples. Second, no continuity of policies. The parliamentary system is not conducive for the formulation and implementation of long-term policies. This is due to uncertainty in the government. A change in the government is usually followed by its policies. For example, in 1977, the Janata government headed by Morarji Desai reversed a large number of policies of the previous government. The same was happened in 1980 when the Congress government was again came into power. Fourth, dictatorship of the cabinet. In parliamentary form of government, both the executive and legislature are together and inseparable. The cabinet acts as a leader of both the executive and the legislature. Dr. Lasky also says that the parliamentary system provides executive opportunity to become to become dictator. Dr. Lasky also states that the parliamentary form of government provides executive opportunity to become dictator. Dictator ही है हाँ for tyranny हाँ Ramsay Muir and former British Prime Minister also complained for the dictatorship of the cabinet. The same phenomena was witnessed during the era of Indira Gandhi and Rajiv Gandhi. Fifth, against separation of power. Against separation of power नहीं है ना यही है ना power. In parliamentary form of government, the executive and legislature are together and inseparable. As Begod points out that the cabinet is a hyphen that binds the buckle, which binds the buckle that joins the buckle that binds both the executive and legislature's department together. Hence, the whole system of government goes against the latter and the spirit of theory of separation of power, but in fact, it is a fusion of power. Fifth, government by amateurs. The parliamentary system is not conducive for administrative efficiency, as the ministers are not efficient in their field. The president, the prime minister have limited choice on selecting his members, and his choice cannot be exceeded to external talents. The ministers devote most of their time in parliamentary work, cabinet meetings, and party activities. Reasons for adopting the parliamentary form of government. A plea was made in the Constituent Assembly in favor of American presidential form of government, but the founding fathers preferred the parliamentary form of government due to some reasons. First, familiar with this system. The constitution makers were somewhat familiar with parliamentary form of government. As it has been operation in India during the British rule. K.M. Munshi argued that for the last 30 and 40 years, some kind of responsibility has been introduced in the governance of the country. The constitution traditions have become parliamentary. After this, why should we go back and buy a novel experience? Second, preference to more responsibility. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar in the Constituent Assembly argued that a democratic executive must satisfy two things, that is responsibility and stability. How unexpectedly, it has not been possible to so far to devise a system which can ensure both at equal degree. The American system provides more stability but less responsibility. The British system provides more responsibility but less stability. The draft commission on recommending the parliamentary form of government and the draft commission on recommending the parliamentary form of government preferred more responsibility to less stability. More responsibility to less stability. More stability to less responsibility. The draft commission or recommending the parliamentary system preferred more responsibility to more stability. Avoid conflict between the executive and legislature. The constitution makers wanted to avoid the disputes and conflict between the executive and legislature form of government. They wanted a form of government. The constitution makers thought that an infant democracy could not afford to take the risk of perpetual cleavage, feud or conflict, or threatened conflict between two organs of the government. And fourth, nature of Indian society. India is one of the most heterogeneous state and has most complex cultural diversities. Thus the constitution makers adopted parliamentary form of government, and it offer more scope to provide representation to all sections and interests in the government. It promotes the spirit of nationality among the citizens, and make them united. फिर whether the parliamentary form of government should be continued or should be replaced by presidential form of government remained a topic of discussion in 1970s. This factor this It was detailed in consideration by the Swarna Singh committee appointed by Congress government in 1975. The committee opined that parliamentary system is doing well in country, and hence there is no need to replace it with presidential form of government. Difference between British parliamentary form of government and Indian parliamentary form of government. First, in India there is a republican system, while in Britain there is hereditary system. In India, the head of the state is elected, while in Britain the head of the state occupies a हाँ ऊपर मोनार्कियल था ना. फिर से बोलती हूँ. First, in India there is a republican system, but in Britain there is monarchical system. In India, the head of the state is elected, while in Britain the head of the state enjoys a hereditary position. Second, in Britain there is the British system is based on the doctrine of sovereignty of parliament, but in India the parliament is not supreme and exercise nearly unlimited and restricted power due to written constitution, federal features, judicial review and fundamental rights. In Britain, the parliament should be a member of a lower house of the parliament the prime minister should be a member of lower house of the parliament, but in India the prime minister may be a member of any of the two houses. Fourth, usually the members of parliament alone are appointed as ministers in Britain, but in India a person who is not a member of parliament can be a minister for a maximum period of 6 months. In Britain there is a system of legal responsibility of the ministers, but in India there is no such systems. But in India there is no such system. Unlike in Britain, in India the ministers are not required to countersign the official acts of the president. Shadow cabinet. Sixth, shadow cabinet is a unique system in the British parliament. It is made by opposition party to control the ruling party and to make its member and to prepare its member for the future office, for the future ministerial office. In India there is no such institution. Thank you.